as a result of that case. And I think that what happened in Michigan could very much become a model for improvement in the rest of the country.
Well, I hope so. And obviously, as we're talking here, the system and that department needs a lot of improvement. I'm curious, while you had the custody of your grandson, did CPS actually do visits?
Do business?
Visits. Did they visit your home?
Very rarely. They were supposed to visit at least once a month, and it was more like every 3 to 4 months. Some of the caseworkers we never actually met in person. You know, I would talk to them on the phone, and then by a month later they were gone and it was somebody else. So there definitely was not enough contact on their part with us as foster parent guardians. They did very little checking up. They would scare you with the fact that they can drop in and even unannounced. But that never happened. Most of the time we didn't even get the regular visits we were supposed to have.
Let alone the surprise visits. Yeah.
So that I can picture that there's probably a lot going on in a lot of families that shouldn't be going on, or even in foster parents and approved foster families, because they don't check up as often as they ought to.
I know that I don't want to, for you to really say how your daughter is coping now that this is all over with, but you as her mother, have you observed any changes in her?
Probably more caution on her part in what she says and does. I know it just tore her heart out that, someone thought she wasn't a good mother, and I really tried to support her in that. I think for the most part she's gotten over it now or gotten beyond it. They've had another baby.
Oh, good.
Their little girl is 8 months old now, but it took them a while to say, should we have another child?
Yeah.
And
of course.
But I think they have really gotten beyond all of it now.
Well, that's good to hear. Deborah, is there anything that you would like to say to our listening audience before we close here? Maybe they know of somebody or are in the same situation, or some words of wisdom from you.
I think the best wisdom I can say is make sure you document everything. Keep a notebook, every phone call that's made, and then jot down the contents of that, what was said generally in that phone call, the date and time of the call. If your child has an accident and is injured, document the injury, what happened, where they were, who else was around, so that you can have some support for saying, this is what happened to my child. This is what happened with the accident. He fell, hit his head on thus and such. It was this time of the day. Here was the action that we took. In the scariness of the moment when a child is injured, you sometimes don't think of those things. But that's what you need later to prove that you didn't abuse a child, that it was an accident rather than abuse. And so I would caution parents, make sure you always know where your medical records are. Have a good relationship with your child's pediatrician, because they can be your best friend in saying that this child isn't abused. And things of that nature to just keep some documentation of records of things.
I'm sitting here and listening to you, documentation of every little accident they have, and it's like, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that was as a parent of when I had my children, they were young, and, thinking of our son, the many times that he had fallen running, like he ran like obviously your grandson, and tripped over his own feet, and, you just kind of pick them up and kiss it better, or rush him down to the hospital to get stitches because, yes, there's another break on top of another break on the forehead.
Right.
And you just don't think about documenting any of this kind of thing.
And I think that's the best protection that we have, because anytime a child goes into a doctor's office with an injury, or they go into an emergency room or one of these, these quickie-type clinics that are, what they call critical care clinics.
Right.
You need a few stitches, but you don't need to go to the emergency room.
Exactly.
And you want to be able to give those people a very good explanation of what happened so that you don't automatically become suspect.
Wow. Automatically become a suspect. You know, isn't our society in a sad place?
Yes. When I think of what happened when I was a kid and the stuff that we did,
no
it's
kidding.
perfectly acceptable, you know.
Well, even raising my own kids, you know, I don't know how old your daughter is, but our son is 41 years old. And, you know, the falls that he had, I mean, I just never considered, or at that time not long ago, and in northern Canada, that wasn't even thought about as being a suspect.
Right. Yeah. I think probably it's because we are as a society more aware of child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
There have been way too many children who've died at the hands of their parents or mom's new boyfriend or the uncle of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
And there are so many of those cases out there where children have died tragically that I think that now Child Protective Services tends to remove the child first and ask questions later in order to, you know, it's a backlash type of thing.
Yeah, and that's understandable. But, hey, there is a point where, okay, let's ask some questions.
Yes.
You know, and obviously not take 13 months and 13 caseworkers, and finally the last one reads the case file and says, what's all this about? There's nothing here. You know, I mean, that angers me, just that fact that all those people up to that point didn't read the file.
Yeah.
Yet pointed fingers.
Yeah, exactly. And for a while they lost our whole case file for about the papers in the file. The whole file got lost for a couple of months.
Wow.
You know, and that's the kind of incompetence that needs to be dealt with, that the agencies themselves need to be more accountable for what's going on within their ranks and make corrections there. And I think if they do that, this will happen a lot less.
Yeah. Gosh, Deborah, thank you so much for coming on this program and talking to us and explaining what you went through, but what really is going on out there, because obviously your case is not the only one, and, you know, you're bringing that up. There are other cases of wrongly accused parents or whomever of abusing a child when, in fact, there is no abuse. I really do appreciate you being able to talk about it, and it's so important to put this out in print and letting others know what is really going on.
And I want to thank you today, too, for having me on this program and for helping me get the word out there.
Well, you're welcome. And, Deborah, tell our listening audience your website address.
Okay, it's www, of course, authorsden.com, and then it's / Deborah K.Frontiera. And if that seems too long, they can just put Deborah K.Frontiera in a Google search, and that website will pop right up on the top.
Yes, it will. And actually, if they even just put Fighting C.P.S. and your first name, because that's what I did, and exactly that's what came up for me. So there you go, listeners. The name of the book is Fighting C.P.S., standing for Child Protective Services. The subtitle is Guilty Until Proven Innocent of Child Protective Services Charges. And the author is Deborah Frontiera. And, wow, as you've heard so far, listeners, this has been really interesting, isn't it? I really encourage you to just sit back and contemplate and really look into what our system is doing or not doing, and possibly advocate and help Deborah get the word out to others and to the politicians to have them look at the system and make some changes, because in the end, it's the child that loses out. Thanks, Deborah.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
And there you go, listeners. Thanks for listening, and come again. This is Irene Watson with Inside Scoop Live. Bye for now.